What if the hero never got back up? What if the villain didn't lose, but won instead? Today we step into anime's darkest timelines, worlds where evil triumphed and nothing was ever the same. First up, we have Madara Uchiha. What if he won at the Valley of the End? If Madara had defeated Hashirama at the Valley of the End, the entire shinobi world would have collapsed before it even began. Instead of founding Konoha together, Madara would have ruled it alone. There would be no room for compromise, no co-leadership, just him shaping the village to how he saw fit. Under his rule, Konoha would become a rigid militarized state. The Uchiha would rise to absolute power, governing not through diplomacy or shared values, but through surveillance, fear, and control. The Senju would likely be annihilated or enslaved, stripped of their influence and erased from power. Without Tobirama Senju, there would be no ANBU, no Shunin exams, no ninja academy. All the foundational structures designed to protect and organize young shinobi would never exist. Instead, children would be drafted into a brutal system where survival is prioritized over growth. Training would be harsh, failure would be punished, emotions would be suppressed. The ideology of the will of fire would never take root. Madara didn't believe in protecting the next generation. He believed in molding the strongest no matter the cost. His version of peace would be enforced through overwhelming strength and constant intimidation, not mutual respect. Other villages would respond with equal aggression. Rather than peaceful negotiations or balanced treaties, the hidden villages would become battlegrounds. Ninja wars would erupt faster and more violently. Global conflict would escalate without end. In this timeline, Konoha would become feared, not admired. It wouldn't produce heroes, it would manufacture soldiers. Naruto wouldn't be the symbol of hope, he'd be a living weapon. Sasuke wouldn't have to seek revenge because his parents and his clan would still be alive. By killing Hashirama, Madara wouldn't just win a battle, he had rewritten the moral code of the entire world. Compassion, legacy, and unity would die that day, replaced by strength, hierarchy, and the permanent shadow of war. If you're into dark alternate timelines like this, hit that like button and subscribe because the next villain's world only gets worse. Next up, we have Frieza and what if he won on Namek? What if Frieza had won on planet Namek against Goku? Whether because Goku never transformed into a Super Saiyan or if his Super Saiyan form just wasn't enough, the galaxy wouldn't just lose a hero, it would lose its last chance at freedom. After the battle on Namek, Frieza would eliminate the remaining fighters without hesitation. Piccolo, Gohan, and Krillin would be slaughtered. Their deaths would be immediate and without mercy. Vegeta, however, would be spared, not out of mercy, but for humiliation. Stripped of pride and title, Vegeta would be paraded across the universe as Frieza's dog, a living example of what happens to those who defy the throne. With no defenders left, Frieza would seize control of planet Earth within days. The Blue Marble would become just another outpost in a galaxy-wide empire built on fear and exploitation. Earth's citizens would be enslaved, its resources drained. However, Piccolo's corpse might be preserved, kept alive just long enough to use the highly cherished Dragon Ball. With them, Frieza could achieve anything he wanted: immortality, infinite power, or the resurrection of loyal followers to expand his army. With Vegeta enslaved to Frieza and Bulma grieving for her friends, Trunks' existence would disappear. The chain of events that led to the resistance would be permanently broken with no savior to fight back. Goku's legacy would vanish and the Saiyan legacy would still be a myth. There is no Gohan rising to surpass Goku, no redemption arcs, no tournament victories, just silence in a dark world ruled by the strongest being in the universe. In this alternate future, the universe would never hear the name Z Fighters again. There would be no Cell Saga, no Majin Buu, no universe survival arc, just a slow, hopeless descent into galactic slavery ruled by a tyrant who already proved he could destroy planets with a flick of his finger. Frieza wouldn't just win on Namek, he would end the age of heroes before it ever truly began. And moving on to our next villain, let us talk about the infamous Eren Yeager. And what if he actually completed the rumbling? What if Eren Yeager wasn't stopped and the rumbling had continued to its final breath? Then humanity wouldn't just lose, it would have ended, with Armin, Mikasa, Reiner, and the rest of the Alliance crushed beneath billions of tons of marching titans. There would be no resistance left. Marley, Hizuru, and every surviving nation would fall in days. Cities would crumble into powder, oceans would evaporate from the heat of endless destruction. Forests, monuments, and culture are all gone. Paradise Island would probably remain untouched, its people would survive, but they'd emerge not as victors, not as liberators, but as the last living species on Earth. The world would be dead and they would be left to walk in its bones. With no one left to fight, Eren's name becomes more than memory, it becomes myth. myth. Yeagerism would rise as the dominant belief system, revering him not as a man but as a god. His actions would be retold as salvation, not slaughter. Titan bones, those colossal haunting remains, would shape the new world. The bones would become temples, tools, homes, and holy relics. Communities would be built among their ribs. Shrines would form around their skulls. Some would even claim to hear Eren's voice when they stood close enough. The skies above would remain stained gray, filled with the ash of everything that came before. Crops would struggle to bring forth their harvest. Water would be poisoned. Technology, science, and literature would be lost to time. But none of that would matter, because to the survivors, Eren Yeager gave them the one thing he believed mattered most, and it was freedom. Paradis residents did not want peace. It was not prosperity. It was the right to exist without fear, but it was bought at the cost of everything else. In this ending, there are no more enemies, no more living behind a wall, just silence, reverence, and the sound of waves crashing against the edge of a world too broken to recover. Next, we have Aizen Sosuke, and what if he killed the Soul King? What if Ichigo had failed in that final battle against Aizen? Then Aizen would fully merge with the Hogyoku and crush all resistance. The universe of Bleach would become unrecognizable. Aizen wasn't just trying to win a war, he was aiming to dismantle the very fabric of existence. After defeating the Gotei 13, Aizen wouldn't hesitate to then go breach the Soul King's palace. The Soul King, who is the axis of all realms, would then be slain or absorbed. Either way, this delicate balance would collapse. The border between life and death is removed. The living world, Soul Society, and Hueco Mundo all begin to bleed into one another. Hollows begin to infect the living, and Shinigami also mutate into something more. Arrancar also start fusing with Vazards. These boundaries that once defined existence now blur together. Time as we know it would be distorted. Souls begin to cross realms at random. Reality itself starts to break down, which would really suck. The earth becomes saturated with spiritual pressure. Its skies cracked with Reiyatsu storm. Entire cities vanish overnight. Either they are consumed by spiritual chaos or reshaped into grotesque monuments by Aizen's power. Humanity doesn't die all at once. It decays, slowly, painfully, and without understanding why. In this timeline, Aizen forms a new army not of Shinigami or Hollows, but of hybrids. Beings born from fusion, mutation, and madness. He rules not as a leader, but as a force of evolution. In his eyes, this is order. A perfected world free from randomness, decay, and fear. Except the only law left is his own. No gods remain to oppose him. No Soul King, no Ichigo, no balance. Just a reality rewritten by one man's desire to transcend everything. And perhaps the most terrifying part, Aizen wouldn't need to raise his voice. He wouldn't need to. He'd simply smile, watching a universe rot into harmony, convinced that what he built was never tyranny, but enlightenment. Finally, we have Ryoma and Sukuna, and what if he was never Seal? In the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, Sukuna is only a threat because he was once defeated. But what if that defeat never happened? What if the great sorcerers who fought to seal him fail, and Ryoma and Sukuna ruled without opposition? There would be no golden age of Jujutsu. The sorcerer clans Gojo, Zen, and Kamo wouldn't just fall behind, they would be annihilated. Their bloodlines would vanish, their secrets erased, their influence reduced to footnotes in accursed history. Without a central authority to resist him, Sukuna would reshape the world into a twisted empire governed by one law: strength above all. Titles would mean nothing. Rank would be determined by kill count. You want respect, you take it. You want power, you bleed for it. There would be no Jujutsu high, no structured training, and no concept of mentorship, just violence passed down like inheritance. Weak sorcerers would be enslaved. Common people would be raised like livestock, sacrificed to feed the ever-growing appetite of curses. Towns would be emptied not by plague, but by ritual. And resistance would be suicidal. Gojo Satoru would never be born. His bloodline would be extinguished before the Six Eyes could ever awaken, which sucks because the one sorcerer powerful enough to challenge Sukuna simply wouldn't exist. But Toji Fushiguro, he might have survived. In fact, he might thrive. Without a system to betray him, Toji's raw power would make him a legend, or worse, Sukuna's enforcer. A walking executioner with no leash, answering only to the king of curses. There would be no balance between cursed energy and human life. The world would rot from the inside out, cities would become feeding grounds, cursed spirits would rule the night and the day, and in the center of it all, Sukuna would sit unchallenged, unsealed, and utterly bored, watching a world he broke simply because no one was strong enough to stop him. Which of these timelines shook you the most? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more dark what ifs, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.